Hello, my name is Sucharita. Welcome to my channel. Thank you to everybody who has been waiting patiently to watch Rahul and I finally purge Adipurush out of our systems. Rahul Desai is joining me today, the heart of darkness. Hi.
Hello. And
You
it feels
needed
like we've been seeing a lot of each other today. But
since Friday, though, definitely. We saw
yeah,
the movie together at 7:30 in the morning. We've had
uh,
2 days to recover, I suppose. And then today, both of us were on Barkha Dutt's show at 6 p.m. That's on her channel, Mojo Story. You all can go and watch us talk about Adipurush there. Then you did one podcast also today, Rahul.
yeah. I did a podcast with Uday, which I normally do with most releases every week. So we talked about Adipurush and Extraction 2, mostly Adipurush, on India
You watched
Independent Films
Extraction?
podcast. Yeah. I watched Extraction 2 also. Last week was Bharaua. I watched that,
Kafi.
Flash also, and that web series also that released, which I hated.
Yeah. So you can listen to Rahul's, you can read his review on Film Companion. You can watch
Yeah.
us talk about Adipurush on Barkha's channel. You can listen to his podcast. And this is going to be the last time we address this film until
I
something
promise.
drastically changes. Yes?
Yeah, I promise. Hmm.
Wonderful. Well, all the 140 people who are here with us already, thank you so much for joining. Please click the like button under this video. अब इसके नीचे like click करेंगे तो ये video और लोगों के पास पहुंचेगा and more people will be able to see what we're talking about. राहुल, अभी 2 दिन हो गए हैं, 3 दिन हो गए ऑलमोस्ट फिल्म को देखे हुए. कुछ तुम्हारे इमोशंस बदले हैं उसके ऊपर बिकॉज फिल्म के अराउंड डिस्कोर्स काफी अजीब हो चुका है जो मेरे को एंटिसिपेट नहीं था कि इतना अजीब हो जाएगा. काफी वियर्ड
I've
हो गई
been
चीजें.
I've been more entertained by the discourse than obviously the film itself. I'm actually quite amused. I'm sitting back and watching every day something is changing. I did
Yeah.
not expect this. This is a twist ending to the discourse because I did not expect that shit coming. I was worried on Friday, as I said, that ये तो बहुत कमाने वाले है. And this is exactly the rhetoric people want to see. But as it turns out, I underestimated, not underestimated, but yeah, I underestimated how many ways people can get offended in this country and how many people can.
Yeah,
That is the
dude,
main
it's
thing.
become weird. Okay, it's not
It's
about the
become very
money.
weird.
It's not about the money, and all of us knew this is going to be a
Yeah.
blockbuster hit because like I said, अभी हम लोग 7:30 साथ में गए हैं पिक्चर देखने के लिए फ्राइडे मॉर्निंग क्योंकि हम पास पास रहते हैं तो हम साथ में काफी फिल्में देखते हैं. हम साथ साथ सो यू सिटिंग इन दैट थिएटर भरा हुआ थिएटर है हमको तभी पता चल गया था कि बहुत पैसे कमाने वाली है फिल्म क्योंकि 7:30 सुबह थिएटर सिर्फ कमल हासन की फिल्मों के लिए लोग इतना एक्साइटमेंट में आते हैं. ठीक है, प्रभास चाहे कितने भी बड़े स्टार हो उतनी बड़ी अभी उनकी आई डोंट थिंक फैन फॉलोइंग है. खैर, it's not about the money. It's about why people are disliking Adipurush the way they are. Initial thoughts पे हमारे जैसे फिल्म क्रिटिक्स देखते ही बोलेंगे कि ये लिखाई अच्छी नहीं है, एडिट अच्छा नहीं है, एसएफएक्स अच्छा नहीं है, सब खिलवाड़ किया हुआ है, क्राफ्ट अच्छी नहीं है, टेक्निकली अच्छी नहीं है, कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं है फिल्म, whatever reasons that we are feeling the way we are feeling about the film and trying to analyze why we feel what we're feeling. But why a certain section of people जिनके लिए I would imagine ये फिल्म बनाई गई है उन लोगों को भी पसंद नहीं आ रही है. The reasons we are hearing is जो लोग थिएटर से बाहर निकल रहे हैं, one man said हनुमान जी ने श्री राम नहीं बोला, जय श्री राम नहीं बोला, even though the whole movie has an underlay of the Jai Shri Ram song, the whole movie. But because Bajrang, that character, doesn't say it, this gentleman was unhappy. Other people were livid that Sita didn't have gungat on her head. Someone was livid that there's meat being shown in the film. Why has it gotten so strange, Rahul?
People see, I mean, I feel like the filmmakers, first of all, they've done a hit wicket of sorts here because they are also the kind of filmmakers that are basically responsible for this post-truth era we live in. So it's because of this that they think they can get away with anything because they've done it before. Like they've done it with historicals year after year. They've been doing it as we speak. So the problem is like people are getting offended across the board for so many different reasons. A lot of people that you talked about right now are getting offended for the wrong reasons, but they're still getting offended. So people from across the board are sounding the same. Everyone's saying we hate the film, but people really need to, people who are very climbing on top this anti Adipurush bandwagon right now, they need to understand the nuance of being offended and of the discourse right now. Just don't blindly climb it saying हमने बोला था the liberals are climbing on saying, of course it is bad. The liberals are starting to sound like the other side, basically, by saying that how dare you change the Ramayana? How
Yeah.
dare you mess with our mythology? But that's not the point. You can adapt mythology. You can adopt. That's the entire point of mythology is supposed to be interpreted in hundred millions of ways. It's
Yeah.
personal to everyone.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you adapt it in this way, of course it's a problem. But the
Yeah.
thing is, the reason I have a problem with the film is very different from the reason so many people are banning the film for this entire anti thing that has started. So it's not, there's no point really deriving glee out of it, that
Yeah.
Adipurush is, everyone's hating it or not. You have to be honest to yourself and ask yourself, why are you hating the film? And then start looking at the discourse and trying to see that, please do not sound like the same people who made it. You
Yeah.
cannot just say that just because if you notice right now, the people they made it for are basically just telling them that how dare you even have the audacity to adapt the Ramayana. But that's not the problem.
How
The
dare you
problem,
have a romantic Bollywood sounding song in the background
yeah,
when Ram and Sita are walking through a
where
field of
are these
flowers?
where are these people when Kashmir Files comes out? Where are these
Yeah.
people when Kerala Stories, when any Akshay Kumar historical comes out?
Yeah.
When they gleefully change the facts and alter it towards this Islamophobic climate, and they make every villain look like a Muslim, bad Muslim, and every Mughal emperor be eating meat in every film. Where are
Yeah.
these people then? They are very happily cheering for it. And these
Yeah.
same people are now saying that how dare you do it to us, though, our Ramayana, our mythology. So it's just, see, look, it's entertaining looking at it on the outside because it's infighting of sorts, but we have to make sure we don't sound the same.
It's very, very strange, when Akshay Kumar's film Prithviraj came out a while back. I don't even remember if it was this year or
Yeah.
last year or in a different lifetime altogether, because it came and went and sank without a
Mm.
trace. That film was also, I think it ends with a disclaimer saying how many years India had to suffer after
Yeah,
Prithviraj is gone because the Mughals took over, etc., etc. And that is a very clear rhetoric that film is pandering to, a very clear emotion that the film is pandering to, and a very clear sentiment in a perhaps confused slash scared audience that they are trying to leech onto and then exploit for their own personal gain. That film also did not generate this kind of anger that from the left or the right that this seemed to have generated. Like you said, mythology is open to interpretation. That's the point of mythology. You read it and then you tell the world the story, and more people hear the story, etc., etc. When I was growing up, one of my favorite books that I've read over and over again, and that was a different time, was when I was exploring as a child what Ramayana stories and Mahabharat stories, because they're
Mm.
fascinating stories. Shivaji Sawant, who's a Marathi writer, he wrote a book called Mrityunjay, and
Mm.
I read the Hindi translation of it also, obviously, because I'm not a Marathi speaker. That book tells the story of Mahabharata from the point of view of Karna, who's the anti-hero, and you
Yeah,
gives you a completely different perspective on everything that happened and the fighting and the
yeah,
clans and the brothers and the Draupadi and everything, and it's fascinating. And I think I might still have it here somewhere or on my bookshelf outside. It's
yeah.
one of my favorite books growing up. It's an interpretation.
Mm.
But like, I was just thinking today that if somebody was to take that book and make and adapt that into an honest screenplay going into a film, people are going to be pissed about it. How
Yeah,
dare you change something that is, I am not angry at the film because they dared to
yeah,
change
yeah.
things up. That's
Mm.
not the point. The point
Yeah,
is that the film is a bad film because they've
yeah,
not done their job well and they're completely unaware how to say the insidious things that they're trying to say
yeah,
with
yeah.
Adipurush.
No, absolutely, I agree with that because it's really not about their. I mean, they've been doing it for years now, so it's really not the fact that they've done it. It's just, as you said, they've done it really badly. They've done it tastelessly, and suddenly people are waking up to the fact that these kind of interpretations are tasteless.
Yeah.
I mean, it took you a while to figure that out. It's not till they messed with Ram and Sita and Lakshman that you've even figured that out. What the filmmakers went in thinking is, we'll only mess or we'll only get a little creative or audacious or shameless with the Lanka parts. which they've done, which they've
Yeah.
like turned it into this DC superhero movie almost. And
Yeah.
they've used all kind of derivative techniques we've seen in the West for years now. And I actually thought that they were very loose limbed in that part. I was like, oh, this looks like an interesting Lanka. This is a futuristic Lanka.
Yeah.
They don't even look like they belong to the same world. Of course, the intentions were not pure, but ironically, what came out of it was more creative than what we saw around Ayodhya or in the jungles or in the exile parts,
Yeah.
because those parts were extremely boring. And
Yeah.
these characters that we see talking in modern language, most of it happens in Lanka. And so the intention basically was to show that, you know what, this newness, this superhero thing that we are doing here, this is evil, and Ram is going to defeat this. So it's like tradition will always beat modernity. That is their regressive message in the film. And their message is, I mean, it can look, they subliminally, it's exactly what they wanted to do. They were like, all these modern techniques of filmmaking you've been seeing over the last 20-30 years, all you kids who like superhero films, all you kids who like these Western mythological dramas and all, you must know that this is they are evil. And that's why Saif Ali Khan represents that in the film. His Ravan represents that in the film. And when Ram and Hanuman and everyone come to sort of, they obviously they'll win. It's basically saying that old is always going to win and tradition will always win. So that is subliminally their regressive message. The problem is that people are taking offense to the fact that how dare you put something modern in the whole film. Forget
Yeah.
the fact that they were trying to show Lanka to be like that, and the villain, and probably, you know, Indian mythology's greatest villain to be, you know, this shapeless villain, this in this shapeless world.
Yeah.
They went all out in that direction, but what they didn't see coming was that people are going to look at Ramayana as a whole and say, you actually messed with the Ramayana, not with Ravan. And that is something that backfired tremendously. So I was I was weirdly interested when the Lanka parts was going on. I was like, oh, if the VFX can look like this, why is it looking like that then in the
Yeah.
rest of the film? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was not mad. I was not mad at Saif Ali Khan's interpretation of Ravan. I
Yeah,
really
I
wasn't
wasn't.
mad at that. I
Yeah,
thought it was, at least he was trying to do something, and he seems to be the only actor whose face is not CGI'd out completely. Prabhas, I can't see him. I don't see him behind the computer graphics. I was not mad at Saif Ali Khan. I thought it was interesting what he was trying to do, and the honestly, I would go even as far as to say I like the 5 heads over 5 heads placement as opposed to
yeah,
the 10 head lateral placement
that's
like
true.
that, because it always bothers me. There's like 4 on one side and 5 on the other side. It always bothered me. But like whatever, right? He's having fun, and then that was the same for Tanaji as well. Like he was the only
Yeah,
one having fun in that film, and that film was also one of those initial movies a couple of years ago that had started to more obviously have a message. Which,
yeah.
like, what are you saying with this film? Like, what are you trying to say here with this movie? Um, I was actually thinking that maybe the hope was that I don't know if like, it was the hope or what, but when characters are saying things like "Jali kya" or "Lanka laga denge," that these will turn into memes, but not the way they have
Yeah,
turned
yeah,
into memes.
exactly. Yeah, I know.
They will turn into memes that people will use on
Use.
Twitter to
Yeah,
troll people who are trying to say things that the filmmakers are not
yeah,
interested,
yeah,
like the opposite thing. So then when somebody is wanting to troll someone, they will take a screen grab from
yeah,
Adipurush and put it up there saying Jali kya, the way they
yeah.
do with Akshay
With Akshay
Kumar
Kumar. Yeah,
gifs, right?
yeah,
Jalina, that gif is very
yeah,
popular. Uske 50 rupees kaat over acting ke, that gif is very
yeah,
popular,
yeah.
which is a hilarious line also. Uh, and then that has turned into a meme in a completely different way.
Hmm.
And this is a moment, this is an anthropological moment for us to observe how their whole strategy has backfired in such a it's not even enjoyable, it's just tragic to
Yeah.
see what has happened around this film.
Yeah, like obviously none of us saw this coming. I won't
No.
say I'm displeased with it, but I'm also not very pleased by it, because if you look at it at a very fundamental level, it's the same people saying, how dare you touch our mythology, how dare you mess with our religion, and if you don't make it the way we want you to make it, then you are the villain. So obviously one of their own is the villain now because he's probably done a terrible job at it. But the message at the center is still intolerance. It is still that no creative liberty can ever be taken with mythology, Hindu mythology. It is still, and these are still very dangerous precedents. And you can rejoice as much as you want that the film is terrible, but understand that this is still not a good precedent. And it's just, I'm not, and I will never defend the makers. But at the end of the day, the fact that even they took creative liberty for heinous reasons, for whatever reasons they did, the fact is that they still did change things in what is looked at as as probably one of the greatest mythological stories told, and people could not stand it. And that's why, so when people are sharing memes of the bad VFX on Twitter, and they are all across the board, the left, the right, the centrist, everyone, you have to understand that they're only sharing it because they are looking for reasons to hate the film that did not conform to their vision, and that did not conform to their truth, their religion. And that is dangerous, that you're not allowing someone else to basically have a say and interpret what you hold holy, what you hold your version of truth. You will never allow other people to do that. And so the VFX things, I'm not even taking seriously, the memes, because I was like, boss, I've seen Brahmastra also, and the VFX is as good or as bad. So please don't come and tell me that, oh, the VFX in Adipurush is the worst I've ever seen. I don't think so. Like, people are not watching the Lanka portion, they're watching it through the lens of how dare they change things. So it's just not, after a while, it's just not like as amusing as we think it is.
The VFX is atrocious. Obviously, it's really, really bad, but it's not the biggest offender of the film. The biggest offender of the film is the film's inability to pick a lane. They wanted an interpretation, but also wanted them to look like this. If your characters look like this, if Ram and Sita look like, and you set it in that era, and you're saying that it is a historical text that is a voiceover before the film begins, and then you want to then take me to Lanka, where the architecture looks like it is out of on a different planet. It's not even, it's a parallel dimension. Then that doesn't compute. It just doesn't go. It does not work. Pick a lane. Decide, are you my historical drama, or are you an interpretation that is futuristic? I would pay good money to watch that. You want to make a futuristic Ramayana? Yeah, by all means. I mean, I keep coming back to Akshay Kumar. I don't know why. For some reason, he's on top of my mind right now. But he also did another film a couple of months ago. I suppose it's because he just does so many movies. It was called Ram Setu, which was that filmmaker's interpretation of the Ramayana. There was a Hanuman character. There was a Sita character. All of that stuff was going on. There was Sanjeevani Booty involved, and that was like a full-on interpretation of the Ramayana. It's a different matter. There was a terrible film, but it wasn't like offensive. It didn't offend people as much as this seems to have offended people. And I think a huge part of that is Om Raut's inability to decide whether he wants to use this film to talk about religion and dharma, or he wants to experiment as a storyteller and be able to tell a story as old as time in a new way.
Yeah, he basically just wanted to do what a lot of filmmakers and historicals are doing lately, but on a larger scale. And obviously, you'd imagine that this is the perfect sort of medium, the perfect vessel, the Ramayana. But to give an example of how even propaganda sometimes can be done in a slightly slick way, which obviously makes them even more dangerous. His previous film, Tanaji, was a fairly well made film at a craft level. I thought it was, the action sequences were pretty entertaining. I thought, again, Saif did his Saif thing, where he is obviously playing a bad Rajput warrior, but he's also hired by a Mughal king. So he's more or less representing the Mughal side, and he is technically the bad Hindu, is the good Muslim, is the Muslim basically. So the overtones are the same here as well. It's just that they don't spell it out saying we have fashioned Ravan as a Mughal emperor, as a evil Mughal emperor. It's all there to see. Like there's a coal eyes, there's the meat eating, there's the way he speaks, there's his very stereotypical caricatured mannerisms straight from like Padmavat. So
Yeah.
it's all there, but it's just that the medium is different. They chose mythology. Again, I'll not act like I saw, like I was expecting people to get offended by it, but it just comes down to the fact that they wanted to basically use the modern language of propaganda in a very ancient story, in a very vintage sort of mythological setting, and that modern language, people miss the point completely, saying, because they are actually catering to the people who are criticizing them, and those people miss the point completely, saying, boss, you use modern language, that is your problem. And when these guys have to probably respond, they'll say that, but we use the language you speak, we use the
Yes.
language that the government is teaching you. So it's just a dissonance, it's just a complete sort of lack of, it's a communication breakdown between the same side. And that's why I'm saying that I've been watching on the sidelines and getting very, very fascinated by what's happening. But as you said, it's a great anthropological study for the future also, because it's just, of course, it might still do business, it will not sink entirely, and that's
No.
not the point of all this. It's just the fact that so many people are taking offense and all sounding the same but for different reasons is just fascinating. Can only happen in a country like this at a time like this.
Yeah, exactly. It is the intentions behind the film is all wrong. The truth of the film is all wrong. It's a nakli. I don't even know like whether to call it jhooti film, because सच मुझे कहीं दिखाई नहीं इस फिल्म में.
झूठी तो सब films hai, like that's the
हाँ.
thing, right? Like a lot of these films are jhooti only. So on what level are we judging them now? If everyone is jhooti, then everyone is truthful also in a way, right?
Yeah. Wow, Rahul, wow. Too deep, huh? Very deep. Also, let's talk about how they promoted this movie. They did not promote this as an action film. They did not promote this as a violent film. They promoted this as a film that you should go with your family. There's going to be one seat for Hanumanji, take your children, take your parents, etc., etc. And then you get to the theater, the visuals are actively scary. Obviously, I mean, we've kind of on some level become desensitized to some sort of violence, so it didn't feel like it was a violent film, but like close-ups of all the chamgadars of the world and all the fake-looking, terrible VFX, flying beasts, etc. It's not a movie to take your children to. It just isn't. Simply, factually, this is not a movie that little children can watch. It's not about should be watching, or it's scary for children. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't think it was ever meant to be a family watch or for children per se. It's not a children's version of Ramayana. Those were the comics we read as Amachitra Kathas we read as kids. Those are different. Those are the entirely innocent sort of things that we grew up reading. This was obviously meant to cater to the adults very in this nation, those who make a lot of other films hits, and that's why it was promoted by so many adults also within the government, in the right in general.
Ranbir
Kapoor very disappointingly. I'm actually quite like I can see an arc in the way it's gone from like, this is the Ramayana, this is you should be proud of this, take your families to go watch it, go with your kids. Film stars are jumping on the bandwagon, the government is jumping on the back, and now everyone's like, it's going through the backlash. And now ironically enough, the one person who always has to fight for credit in their lifetime, which is the writer, has been put at the forefront of it all, saying, boss, tu credit lele, you did all this. And I was like, all these years writers have been fighting for credit, and now they put that guy in front of the camera saying, this is all you're doing. And Om Raut is just like taking a step back. All the film stars who've sort of promoted this, all the politicians who promoted this, they're not saying anything right now because people.
No, but a huge part of that also is because Manoj Muntashir has become a very vocal presence on the internet over the last couple of years, and Om Raut has never been a vocal presence on the internet. So people just know Manoj Muntashir, who he is, because of all the things that he's been saying, which have been just upsetting and wrong. And I used to be a fan. I thought he was good. I thought he because when he did the Hindi translations for the Bahubali films, the dialogue I think he did, and I think he also did the lyrics. I'm pretty sure he did the lyrics. I think he also did the dialogue, and I remember being impressed with despite me not being familiar with Rajamouli or Prabhas or any of these people, or the hype of the first Bahubali movie had also missed me. And then when I watched the second one, I thought this is really good. Like I'm following it, I'm interested in it, it's entertaining, and I thought he did a really good job. And I remember mentioning it in my review of the film as well, that this is but no, things have changed over the last few years in such a major way. He once made a statement saying that, and all of his old, because there's always receipts, right? So all of his old interviews are popping up, and he made a statement saying that there is no way you can speak in your आम बोलचाल की भाषा without using words that have been taken from the Urdu language, which is just true. हम हिंदी बोलने वाले लोगों की भाषा में उर्दू है तो है, फैक्ट है. तो जिस तरीके से उन्होंने लिखा भी है इसको, उसमें the Urdu words are there in the dialogue. They're just there because that's how his brain functions, and that's, he's a writer and his brain functions in Hindi with words from Urdu in there, and he's written it in there, and it's so obvious that after those scenes have been shot, those dialogues have been delivered, they've been dubbed over later on afterwards with the chaste Hindi words, which is this always happens. This is not a new thing for people to dub over dialogue that has been delivered in the film, and then later on you've realized एक कुछ गलत हो गया है, कोई फैक्ट गलत निकल गया है, कुछ किसी का साल गलत निकल, किसी का नाम गलत निकल गया, etc., etc. So you notice this happen a lot, but to see it happen in this film and to kind of have an understanding of why it is happening in this film was just that much more upsetting to see. And I observed it as I was watching, and I tried to keep up with like all the words that I found were being changed. But it's
I'm pretty sure a lot of patchwork happened after the response to the trailer also. People.
What happened at the Tribeca? Do you know what happened? Why it was dropped from Tribeca?
No clue. I just lost track after a while. I knew it was not going to premiere there or whatever it was supposed to do there. Eventually, I think people that lost their shit after they watched the trailer. And I'm pretty sure at a script level, it was still Ram and Sita and Lakshman and Ravan. I'm pretty sure at some point over many drafts and many edits, they might have also changed the identities to identities that they can use as insurance later, saying हमने कब बोला था रामायण के बारे में, which is exactly what the writer is doing now. And because I feel like they were waiting to see how people sort of respond to it. I don't think they were entirely confident themselves after the VFX was stashed in the trailer. And I feel like after that, a lot of dialogues have been changed. Maybe the names were changed also, just to make sure that they don't fall into serious trouble when there is no escaping the fact that it's Ramayana. Now they can just say, "Ye to Adipurush hai, Ramayana nahi," which is rubbish. Of course, it insults the intelligence of the entire country, but on a legal level, or if someone wants to take them to jail or court or something, I think they're just covering their butts for that. And I'm not surprised there. Like I was. It's not anything new we've seen that they've done here that they've not been doing. And I myself have like become so tired of this kind of film being made that even when I review these films now, I'm like, forget trashing it. That is just like every month. Let's try to find out what the filmmaker and why the filmmaker is going wrong at such a fundamental level. And now I've just started doing that. I'm like, let me just like do a psychological study of the film itself. Why is it going wrong? What is it trying to do without realizing it's doing? And because there's no other way to go. Like it's I can't repeat myself film after film. And I'm pissed off that people are only waking up to it now, that the fact that they've been doing this for years. And you as a film critic have been watching films every Friday. We've been noticing the saffronism happening in all films. It's just that now it suits their narrative. It's convenient to criticize it, so they're doing it. But that doesn't change the fact that tomorrow, Vivek Agnihotri historical will come, and the same people will praise it for altering facts or for making a terrible film out of it. So that's not going to change because that's not mythology.
I mean, that's the other thing. It's a terrible film. Even if you take aside the religious aspect of it, it's just bad filmmaking. It's just bad filmmaking. Rajamouli made RRR, right? Which is not a film that I liked, but it's a film that you liked. It's a film that a lot of people around the globe liked. And it is heavily inspired from Ramayana and Mahabharata. There's both those epics in that film. He has said openly many times that the Ramayana and Mahabharata inspired all of his works. They just seep because he grew up on these epics and they seep into his work. It's not a movie that I enjoyed specifically for that reason. I said that you promised me the story of a pre-independence India, and how these two you made a fictionalized version of how two freedom fighters from different sides of the independence war came together and then beat the British, but then you completely abandoned that and turned it into a mythological piece, and various other reasons. But then that was also an interpretation, very clear. But it's
I mean, it's
Rajamouli.
the best. It's the best case scenario when it comes to interpretations. If you want to do an interpretation of the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, then don't sell it as the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Set it in a modern era like Rajamouli has done with RRR, like probably the freedom fighting period, and then hit audiences with something they don't expect. Whether they like it or not, then is a consequence to be seen later. But they're still insanely imaginative about the whole thing. And I mean, that's the whole thing about propaganda. You can't avoid it in Indian films anymore. But it's about how they are packaged and what the filmmakers tend to do at a very basic level. And if you're so blatant about it, as you are in Adipurush or as you are in a lot of these films we've been seeing lately, then there's no point. Then there's no hiding from the fact that you messed with people's emotions, you messed with people's truths. And now more than ever, people have been clutching on to religion and clutching on to like faith, and so everyone's obviously a little far more touchier than they were 4 years ago. So yeah, I don't think they saw it coming, and I think serves them right. But then at the same time, it also makes me a little scared about filmmakers who plan to interpret these mythological stories down the line.
Yeah, one of the things I get trolled on a lot when I talk about RRR every time I do is people saying, "But it is not Ramayana or Mahabharata. You are an idiot. You are seeing things that don't exist." Which I'm like, well, okay, sure, but it is. It very much is, and that is, what is that saying? The biggest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince people that it's not real. It's just how it is. It wasn't presented as anything except what it was. What do you think of? Shall we get into the review part of the film? Like, should we try to review the film? Like, what do you think of the acting performances? Kriti Sanon. I don't even know how to talk about that.
I totally forgot that it
वो भी होता है, वो सब भी होता है.
Can be reviewed. Yeah, no, I mean, like, come on. Like, it's just, as you said, apart from Saif, I don't think anyone got the memo. And everyone was like on their own little, okay, how do we sort of follow the director's vision blindly? Kriti Sanon obviously doesn't look like she belongs in that film. I think her job as a wolf in Bhedia was far better. Even the VFX in Bhedia was far better. And
she's a good actor. What
she can be a good actor if she wants, but from evidence so far, she barely wants it. So I'm not going to stand here and say, "Oh, but boss, you have potential." No. Till you show it to me more often, one Mimi is not enough, and that wasn't in a good film. So I mean, you have to back it up with the choices you make. Prabhas was pretty terrible, but then again, people
Prabhas
prefer
was barely there. He was
barely there. He was just running in slow motion. The camera was on his face. And
which was like
frozen.
Frozen in space and time.
Yeah, and it was fascinating because people don't know what they are fighting for right now. They don't know what they are trolling. So basically, what they want is that kind of Ramayana, the one we saw Prabhas in, right? Yeah. The parts with Prabhas and Sunny Singh and Hanuman and everyone, they want that. Where that one which doesn't offend people and looks terribly boring. The VFX is awful in those parts. And the ones that turns into Planet of the Apes out of nowhere, with nothing there is no rhythm to it. There is no sense of storytelling in that. But people don't realize it. They are fighting that they want something like that. And if they and they are more offended by the parts with Raman, with his sister who's become a seductress, and with all those parts in Lanka, is what they are taking offense to. How dare you offend our Hindu tradition? But the thing is, if they get what they want, they will get that insanely boring film that we saw Prabhas in, which is the other part of the Ramayana. And I don't want that either. So I'm on nobody's side here.
That's true. But I am on Sunny Singh's side because I feel kind of bad for Sonu ke Titu ki sweetie,
Oh
because
God.
he's just so earnest, poor guy. But the film has treated him so badly. The actor Sunny Singh
Yeah.
so badly. When the poor guy is not being Lakshman with the Punjabi twang,
Yeah.
I couldn't deal. I think all of us simultaneously burst out laughing, or at least chuckled very loudly when he said, "तूने पहले कभी युद्ध नहीं देखे?"
Yeah, most unusual casting. I love people who cast against type, but this was so much against type that casting ही नहीं रहा उसके बाद. So it felt like Sunny
He's
Singh
so.
was still in Sonu ke Tittu, like
I
after a
know.
while.
I felt so bad for him because I don't know. I like him. I had a soft spot for him. As the last time we
Man.
saw him in a guest appearance in that
What was he in?
Kartikeyan film.
Oh,
घरवाली
right, yeah.
वो क्या फिल्म थी यार, वो भूमि कार्तिक एंड अनन्या पांडे वाली, जिसमें
Oh, right.
he
Right,
comes
right. He
in
was
like
there. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
a song number and everything, and he's like looking really good,
Yeah.
and he was in that other film also, not Bala but the other film with the baldness,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
where he's losing his hair due to
Right,
alopecia.
right. Oh, yeah, of course. Hmm.
Right, there were two films about a man losing his hair to alopecia simultaneously.
Yeah.
And I like him. I think he's got the whole like bumbling but lovable fool thing down. I just the film. Why did the film decide to not have the Lakshman character do anything?
They just
I
treated Lakshman really badly. Like they treated him like slasher flicks used to treat minorities in their films at the
You
beginning of
will
the
be the
like
first one
just
to go.
you'll be the first. You just get done with Lakshman's dialogue every scene because Ram just like dismisses him. Anything Lakshman says, Ram says the opposite, and I'm like, what is the point of even him
Yeah,
right now? And it's just the film's attitude towards anything that does not suit their agenda, which is basically good versus evil and old versus new. And Lakshman doesn't fit in anywhere mostly there. It's the same with like the way they treated Ravan's son with like all
yeah.
those dialogues and with his flash superpowers and all. But it's just,
Vatsal Seth, my God,
yeah,
Vatsal
I was
Seth.
like, Tarzan the Wonder Car is back.
I love it. It was honestly, if they had committed to that side of
They should
things,
have
it would
committed
have
to
made
it.
a
Like, they should
better
have.
film.
I
These
was
people
waiting for
have,
that. Yeah.
yeah, इनके टैटू है, इनके पास
Yeah.
ऐसी सुपर पावर्स है जिसका कोई रूल नहीं है, because then it goes into
There's no rules.
absurdism, right? Because if there are
Yeah.
no rules to this canon that you're developing in front of
Yeah.
our eyes, then commit to that. That would have made for a much funner film to watch.
I mean, filmmakers normally take creative liberties with characters and environments they know people will not get offended by, like with the Mughal emperor in a Padmavat, with
Yeah.
Afghan warrior somewhere, with basically something that whose religion has nothing to do with Hinduism, and filmmakers tend to get really loose-limbed and creative, ironically, with those characters, and you
Yeah.
get better performances there because you can actually see that there are no rules. This world is shapeless.
Yeah.
And that's what they tried to do here. They were doing it for a bit until until we realized that this is part of the Ramayana, until the country realized that, oh wait, but no, why are they having fun in the evil portions, in the new portions? How dare they have fun? And
Like,
that's exactly,
when Ravan shows up and kidnaps Sita Mata, and he
yeah,
takes her, and like she floats midair and she floats
yeah, yeah,
behind him. I was like, this is a cool visual. This is a
yeah,
cool visual that she's like covered in vines, and she's floating slowly behind him, and her hair is like, whatever in the wind and whatever. But then and then it was just so bad. The chase sequence after that was just so dull, and it was just not good. This is, by the way, our most successful stream so far. Rahul, there are 740 people watching us right now. To
Why am I not
everyone,
surprised?
it's crazy. So जो भी अभी देख रहे हैं, please, before we move ahead, we'll talk for a little bit longer, but please like करो इस video को, click that like button underneath, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel as well. This is where I talk about all my movies, and Rahul occasionally presents his Heart of Darkness and exposes that he's actually a nice person to the world on this channel. Please click the like button before we move ahead. I was not very mad at Ajay Atul's score.
Hmm.
It's the most Ajay Atul score there can be. It's
Yeah.
their
Hmm.
signature tunes, big drums, big music, big instruments.
Yeah.
Uh, when it's not the romantic songs, but otherwise, I thought that Ravan's introduction song, as absurd as the visuals were, is kind of a cool like
Yeah.
music track. Shivoham,
No,
Shivoham.
I agree because like Ajay Atul in general have this trademark thing they do with crescendos, they do with like symphonies and all, and they do it pretty well. Um, like the worst parts of this film was obviously the Ram and Sita romance, the songs that they had like out of nowhere, really boring, zero chemistry. But the only saving grace almost there was Ajay Atul's music in some of those scenes, and you can tell the soundtrack very. They have a very distinct sort of they have a very distinct identity, the way they
Yeah,
compose their music. And of course, they have the Jai Shri Ram anthem here, and they have a whole bunch of things they've done precisely for this film. It is also by far their worst soundtrack, but that doesn't mean it's a bad one.
yeah,
It's in the worst possible film. And I think some of the scenes were, as you said, with the Lanka parts, with the Ravan parts and all, I thought they were at least doing something, because I also felt like they're using more modern instruments. They are not bound by rules and fear, not
yeah.
paralyzed by fear कि कोई बोल देगा if we use like a synthesizer, or if we use a piano behind Ram ka Chera and Sita ka romance, then people will get pissed off. We have to use like little more traditional sounds there, and let's save all the modern sounds for Ravan and all. Funnily enough, all the filmmakers, including the musicians, were having fun in Lanka, but the Lanka part is supposed to be the evil part. So, I
Yeah,
mean, go for
yeah. I know. I'm very confused. I don't know what this film was trying to do, where it
it.
has landed, and why they are changing things. I'm very confused. I don't know. All I know is that I don't like it. I don't like any of
Yeah,
this. I don't like any of the
yeah.
conversations around it right now. I really, truly don't. Prabhas and Kriti Sanon look good, but they have zero, at least in this film, chemistry in the film. And also Ramayan at the heart of it essentially is a love story. Then that turns into something else, and then that gives way to some another kind of story that rotates
Hmm.
around it. What did you think of the love story?
They forgot about Sita in the end, if you remember.
Yeah,
Like
she's just
she was
standing
still,
there looking
yeah,
confused.
looking confused and looking at something we don't even know what she's looking at, because they are clearly out of a line of vision. It's not like
Hmm.
Lanka is entirely like it's a glass wall there. So it's like Ravan and Ram are like going to war there very elaborately elsewhere, and Sita is completely forgotten about. Like one or
She's
two
just standing
reaction
in her
shots.
cherry blossom Vatika, just
Ah,
looking over the
boy.
edge.
Bus the two. I mean, it's not unusual, right? And like technically in love triangles, because two men are fighting or something, then their machismo takes over. Then they forget about the fact that they're fighting for a woman altogether. It becomes about ego. The same thing happened here also in the filmmaking. They
Hmm.
did the same thing, and so the love story was as good as not there for me. I was deeply not offended, but I was deeply like bored and disappointed by the Hanuman parts, because it's just the characterization of Hanuman. Always felt like he was like holding his breath to make his cheeks to blow up his cheeks, and
Yeah,
that's just bad design, bad VFX, bad whatever you want to call it, prosthetics,
practical
whatever. The
effects,
whole
even. Yeah.
package is bad, because you could have done 100 other things if you're going to actually introduce like VFX monkeys and apes and like a bear, and the rest of the army is proper VFX in the sense that they are actual animals. You've
Hmm.
like let Hanuman be the least convincing out of them. You've not even dared to take the risk of making him look more beastly than humanly. And the result is what we see, such an awkward performance, because it
Hmm.
always feels like he's just trying to blow up his cheeks. And that's
Hmm.
just so distracting in a film of this scale. And it's
Hmm.
just child's play. You shouldn't be making these mistakes in a film, whether it's mythology or history or propaganda or like anti-Muslim. I don't care. Just
Hmm.
get your basics right.
So essentially, the film, I am very confused with everything that's going on right now and why it is the level of anger that it is. I
Yeah.
really didn't think that it would come to this point. It feels weird and I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared. I'm very nervous.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know what the rest of it is. It's the, so it's, if, oh my goodness, it's just very upsetting that they've taken something that is so dear to so many people, not just as a religious text but as a story, like the beats of the
Yeah.
story, right? It's the Lord of the Rings beats.
Yeah.
You have to leave home because there is something that is not in your control, and you have to leave home and you have to travel farther than you've ever been. You meet a motley crew of people along the way, you build a little bit of your own militia, then you reach the big villain, and then there's a point where you feel like that you will never beat the villain because the villain is eternal, the villain cannot die, but somehow small things come together, you beat the villain because you can't wait to go back home. Like that's where your heart is, that's where your mind is, and you want to go back. It's the story template that we've seen in classics like Lord of the Rings, and it's the same template. But how to mess it up so badly
Yeah.
is kind of phenomenal to see. Observe. Final thoughts before we wrap talking about Adipurush for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, on the whole, I just say that it's just I'm not surprised that we are at this moment in our history here as a country where everyone across the board is agreeing on something, but for entirely different reasons. That pretty much shows where we are as a people. That even in irony, we are sort of being a tragedy because we are just like everyone's like climbing onto the same bandwagon and ripping down the same film, but nobody knows why they're doing it, and everyone has their own agenda behind it. It's personal, it's political. Don't pretend it's not political. It is. People who say that look at it just as a film, I'm sorry, you played that card long back. That doesn't apply anymore in 2023. So to everyone who's listening here, and to even to people who are going to consume this discourse for the next few weeks, wherever it goes, I don't want to know, but wherever it goes, just be prudent to the fact that everyone is in this for their own little agenda. Nobody's actually, I mean, it's our job, so we are telling you this because we are film critics. You don't have to agree with one side. The fact that there are sides itself is the biggest tragedy in all this.
Exactly. Why should there be sides?
Yeah, like bad storytelling is bad storytelling, bad filmmaking is bad filmmaking. But no, how dare you offend our religion? How dare you offend our mythology is not a valid criticism for the rest of your life, because this same thing will come and bite you in your ass later. So yeah, like just be careful when you consume the discourse over the coming weeks, because this has stopped being a film now. It's being far more than that. It's become like a big political sort of vehicle, and the elections are next year. So be careful in how you want to look at this, and whether you rejoice for the failure of this film or for the success of this film. Just understand that you have to make your own opinion about it, and you have to understand why you are against this film or you don't like this film or where it comes from. Don't like fall for the right saying that how dare they change our religion. Don't fall for the left saying that, oh, it's terrible VFX, and the right
Ha
are
ha
making
ha,
fools of
laugh, laugh,
themselves. Ha ha ha.
laugh.
Laugh. Don't fall for the centrists who are like laughing at both sides. Just like make up your own mind. If I'm not saying go watch the film, but just consume the discourse in a slightly clever manner. Be a little more aware of the world around.
We don't have an option right now to not be aware. That option doesn't exist. We have to be very aware of the conversations around our popular culture. And I'm looking straight into the camera and I'm talking. You have to be aware, deeply aware of the conversations around popular culture, whether it is cinema, whether it is any other form of entertainment you consume. Who is saying the things that are being said, why they are being said, and how does that impact your life, your society, your families, and the people around you, the friends you hold near and dear, the relationships in your life, every single thing. Cinema by nature is manipulative. It's just the nature of the medium. Do not let it overpower your rational thinking as a human person who lives in India in 2023. It is very important to vigilant, just be vigilant, be aware, and deeply understand everything that's happening around you, and also like this video, I guess. Do we know what's coming out this week? We don't know what's coming out this week, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I don't
What else did
look
you watch
into
last
that.
week? क्या क्या देखा? बहुत कुछ देखा ना?
I watched Flash. I watched Extraction 2. I watched the web series on Amazon, Ji Karda.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched
Um,
it yet.
yeah, and I watched Adipurush, and I watched I Love You, which came on Geo Cinema with the Rakulpreet Singh film. Um, Most of it was not good. Ironically, the best film of the week was Flash, the DC film. So that says it's not been a great week in general.
Yeah, yeah. I thought the Extraction had great action, but then nothing else.
Yeah, that's pretty much the Russo brothers formula, and I was totally unimpressed by Extraction 2. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
soulless.
empty.
So yeah.
I enjoyed Kandahar on Amazon Prime Video. It took me a while to get into the film. It has the typical, like, it's the packaging is so run of the mill and it's so dull. The first 30 minutes are really difficult. But then once you get into the film, it's actually about an American soldier who's gone on one last mission, realizing how badly they messed up in Afghanistan and how they put everyone's life in danger, and they actually go and like have this, like, the film is having this conversation
Yeah.
how America messed it up. And I was like, that's refreshing to see, that's interesting to see, because
Some
American
honesty.
films, yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, the American films set in Afghanistan are not saying that we messed it up.
Yeah,
They're
they
saying
mostly
that
don't.
we are saved you, we've saved you.
Yeah.
It is actually set in recent years after American troops have left Afghanistan, and that's where the film
Got
is
it.
set.
Yeah,
And that
that's
made
I
it very
wanted to watch
interesting.
that film. Yeah.
It's on Prime Video, and Ali is
Yeah.
just amazing. He's such a phenomenal actor. He's better than Gerard
Hmm.
Butler in the film. It's so good.
Yeah, Gerard isn't great, but yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of sleepwalking through most of it, but Ali Fazl is really
Yeah.
amazing. So if you get the chance to watch Kandahar, be lenient with the first 30 minutes of it, and then it'll hold your attention after that. I know we've not had a chance to talk about this a little bit, but like little bit, just a little bit, just a little
Oh,
bit.
shit.
जस्ट अ लिटिल बिट आई नो हमारी बात नहीं हुई क्योंकि तूने बहुत ही लेट देखा पर
हाँ,
फाइनल
बहुत ही
थॉट्स
late.
बता दे सक्सेशन के बारे में फाइनल थॉट्स बता दे अभी सारे लोग हमारे भाग जाने वाले हैं क्योंकि उनको पता है हम
हाँ,
आदिपुरुष की
no.
बात अब नहीं करेंगे दोबारा
No, I waited for no design. I managed to protect myself from what happened. It was a miracle. I stayed off spoilers on Twitter, and I was blown away by the finale. I'm glad I sort of
yes
it still like held me in the way, even despite the hype, despite everything I'd heard and all. I was absolutely blown away by it, and I'm so sad it ended, but I'm also happy it ended like that.
yes
There was no better way, and it's one of the rare shows that obviously sort of is close to perfection, and that's probably as good as it gets. I'm sort of hopefully trying to write about it in the coming weeks. Eventually, I'll make sense of my feelings, because right now, last week I was still very overwhelmed by it.
yes
But yeah, but very, very. I mean, one of the best shows we've ever seen by far. Yeah,
we're so lucky that we're getting to
we
watch
are
it
very
happen
lucky.
in front of
Yeah,
us
that's
very
true.
lucky that this is happening everybody before you all leave please like this stream share this stream or at least click the like button YouTube will do the rest of it on its own वो share खुद कर देगा subscribe to the channel before you leave राहुल तू कुछ देख रहा है अभी कुछ recommend करना है जनता को देखने के लिए in their free time
Right now, I'm not watching anything because I watched so much
yeah
last week. I'm taking a slight mental break in general.
good
But yeah, no, I was just I've noticed that the Bear season 2 is released in the US on Hulu and all. I'm waiting for it to come to India at some point, like legally on some platform. I'll wait for that till then. But yeah, nothing major. Other than that, I just recommend, maybe as a last thing, that I think a couple of weeks ago on Disney Hotstar there was School of Lies, a web show.
Avinash Arun
Yeah, Avinash Arun, and for me that was one of my favorite Hindi web shows of the year, and it has been a very good year for web shows. So and as usual for long form storytelling, I know Scoop released on the same week, but I preferred School of Lies. Eventually, it stayed with me a little longer. Even the Scoop was the more high profile series. So I deeply recommend that anyone. Of course, it's a very bleak series. It talks about very difficult things, trauma and abuse and children, and it's set in a boarding school. But for those who can know that Avinash Anurin is one of the finest filmmakers we have, and he's also one of the finest cinematographers we have. So, and he has also shot this series. So it's just terrific filmmaking all around, terrific storytelling, writing, acting. One of the rare instances where kids are directed well, teenagers are directed well as well. Often never happens in across the world, not just Indian cinema. So do watch it. It's a difficult series to get through, but if you like your cinema dark and and reflective and introspective, just and do watch it. I couldn't recommend it enough.
I liked Avinash Arun's movie very much. I watched it at
You
IFFI
watched
last
it,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, three of us. It played at IFFI and it also played the New York Indian Film Festival. But I watched it at IFFI in Goa last year, and I liked that very much. What have I watched recently that I would like to recommend? This film is not actually available for streaming anywhere, but recently I had the chance to watch Siddharth Chauhan's Amar Colony. That has been doing the festival rounds for a while. And I watched it at a screening 2 nights ago, and it's so good. It's so good. It stayed with me, and the more I thought about the film, the more it kept growing and growing. And like when I finished it, I was like, I don't like this film, but within 30 minutes, I was like, I fucking love this film, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that's the best kind of experience, right? When a film just like enters your body and refuses to leave. So Amar Colony, Rahul, if you get the chance to watch Siddharth Chauhan's film. It's still doing festival rounds, but if you get a chance to watch it at a screening or something, Amar Colony.
Yeah, no, I should have watched this long back. Like the filmmaker was in touch with me long back. Had the screener, but never got around to watching it. So, like, sorry for that. To if Siddharth is listening, but I would love to watch it now. That
it's very good. It's very good. What else have I am now going to read Shubhra Gupta's book, Irfan. I've just received it. I'm going to read that next. So that's my next thing that I'm doing for fun. And then I will meet you and have some drinks for fun. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Rahul. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Please like this stream before you go and subscribe to my channel, because this is really the only way I do anything in my life anymore. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.